I'm Steve Rosenbaum, and this is another edition of Hacking TV. This week, the Wizard of Bezos comes out from behind the curtain.
And I'm Saul Hansel. Another smart guy, Anthony Wood of Roku, talks about his under-the-radar plan to beat Google's.
And in Chapter 3, the future of TV. Mobile or AI, or strangely both.
And this week, $20 million more is poured into the massively overfunded web video space.
Massively overfunded, says you. I'm Steve Rosenbaum.
And I'm Saul Hansel.
And this is Hacking TV. Howdy, Saul. How are you?
I am great. Week 2 from the beautiful new improved Montclair Hacking TV studios.
With your massive bandwidth. And it, by the way, the bandwidth makes you look more handsome, I think.
I show off my bandwidth well.
It's well done. So let's just jump right into it because we have a lot to cover this week. The Recode conference. I was there in spirit. I was not there physically, but I was there digitally. And the big opening night talk was Walt Mossberg and Jeff Bezos. Came with a lot of anticipation and was, I thought, absolutely fascinating.
I've always thought that Jeff was one of the smartest and most interesting guys that I had the pleasure of meeting over the years. And boy, that company keeps doing interesting stuff, and a lot of it. What jumped out at you from the talk he gave at Recode?
So a couple of things worth pointing out right up top. First of all, for a guy that's as powerful and has as many touch points into both the U.S. economy and changing face of retail and e-commerce and video and newspapers, he does interviews occasionally, but you don't see him. He's not like a flirty conference going kind of guy. And so, when he said to Walt, sitting in the big red chair, I haven't been here in 8 years. A lot's happened in 8 years. If you think about Jeff Bezos, I'd like to actually go back and see that interview again. But I just thought he was on the top of his game, boy. And Walt and Kara, they know how to handle important subjects, but they're not shy. I mean, nobody gets like it's not one of those interviews where the PR person gets a list of questions and gets to review it and they negotiate, we're not going to talk about this, we're not going to talk about that. When you agree to do, a Recode interview, you pretty much lay yourself bare. And Bezos, I kept waiting for him to say no comment or I can't answer that or, oh, Walt, and he really didn't duck anything.
Well, he ducked specifics all over the place, right? When they were asking him about the why don't they sell Apple TV or Chromecast boxes, he said he helped answer the question, but vaguely. I think private business discussions should stay private, but he wants to only sell video players when the deals have acceptable business terms, right? So that's not answering the question, but it's not just refusing to discuss it either.
I don't know. I thought there was a lot. I thought there was lots of tea leaves to read there. Clearly, there's been a negotiation. Clearly, it broke down. His point of view is it broke down over price or over rev share or cut or however the negotiation went. It might be that he was going to, that if they'd said, we'll charge you a penny, he would have said that's too much. But but then they could have called bullshit on that. I thought he made it pretty clear that...
The thing about, Jeff, I think, and this is my bias as a reporter, is too into secrecy, but he's not afraid of the press. And at least in all of my interactions with him, he's very affable, is smart and knows he's smart and doesn't feel threatened. I've talked to any number of CEOs who, definitely felt like they needed to be pampered and we're just afraid. He's not afraid. He just thinks that they're so far ahead of everybody else that they don't want to answer any questions because why should they, right?
So for example, he talked a lot about AI, And maybe some of this had been, you could have, if you've been digging around, found it. But I'd never heard before that he's got 100 full-time people working on Echo.
I think it's 1,000. He said.
Was it 1,000?
That's what the paper said.
Well,
Which
that's
a
an even bigger
lot.
number.
And
Now, to be clear, my Echo is not here yet. I'm waiting patiently for it. It's due to be delivered on June 22nd, and I'm excited to play with it because
I have one in a box in the front, but I haven't opened it yet because I have too many other boxes to go through.
You have one, and you're not like rapidly ripping it apart and plugging it in.
I just got it today.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm by the way, I'm announcing this on the podcast today for the first time. I am officially breaking up with Siri.
I'm so sorry for you.
She and I, we're not connecting on a. She's just not hearing me when I speak to her. I'm trying to be clear about my needs, and she's not responding.
You say something. She has what she likes to pay attention to.
Honestly, I've actually started doing screen grabs of her responses to me because they're so absurdly off. Like just
so Steve, I just wanted to say, I'm with you all the way, but I'm friends with Siri too, and I have to keep both relationships going.
All right. Well, I think that when push comes to shove, we may find that Amazon is our new shared best friend. But we'll see. I mean, everyone.
Actually, I have very good relations with the non-humanly named Google Assistant is now what they call the voice thing. But if I actually want to ask a question of my phone, the Google app does a pretty damn good job these days.
But let's get back to Bezos because I like this, man behind the curtain, Wizard of Bezos comes out from behind analogy. I think that I'm willing to stake a little mini piece of my reputation on the fact that this Recode interview will go down as kind of a turning point in terms of, he talked about Donald Trump, he talked about the Gawker Peter Thiel thing, he talked about the Washington Post. I thought with real clarity of vision and the Washington Post. I got wrong. I was surprised at least what he said about the Washington Post.
What jumped out at you from that?
Part of the problem is you're right. He's fairly secretive, and so you end up much like the Wizard of Oz, painting your own story around. So I had in my mind a story for the Washington Post that at least in part was tied to local delivery and localism and Amazon food and all this stuff, even though I know the Washington Post is going national and they don't want to be a local paper and they're competing with the New York Times. I know that whole in terms of how they're investing in reporting. That being said, though, I still thought that at least the newspaper business interested Bezos because it tied to commerce and localism and delivery. And if that's part of his play, he didn't say it. It seemed like I got that totally wrong. Like totally wrong.
Well, they certainly aren't talking about that, whereas they are investing in, really good product. I mean, they have very good people building apps for them and so on, and they're just playing, what we have figured out is the digital news video game reasonably well.
And he had no obligation to take a side on the Gawker Thiel thing, and lots of Silicon Valley bigwigs are siding with Thiel on the it's his money, he can do with it what he wants, and he's fighting the big bad Gawker beast. I thought it was surprising to me that he came down on the side of Gawker.
Well, look, if you're a publisher, you sort of have to, right? If he didn't, he wouldn't be playing the role of newspaper publisher very well.
Yeah, but he could have said, again, I don't know who he's friends with and who he's not friends with, but he came back with a very good First Amendment free speech. His quote was, beautiful, proper speech doesn't need to be defended. Ugly speech does. which was a nice way of saying I don't approve
That's
of
what publishers should say.
What? What a publisher should say.
I said that's what publishers should say.
Yeah, but but here's the question. Jeff Bezos gets to work at 8 a.m., leaves at 6 every day or 7. I'm making up numbers. I don't know when he gets to work or when he leaves. What percentage of those 10, 12 hours is he a publisher? 3? 10? 1?
That I don't know the answer to that.
He should have said, by the way, at Recode, listen, I invested personal money in the Washington Post. I'm here as the CEO of Amazon. That's my personal business. And he didn't even make any distinction between his role as the CEO of Amazon and his role at the Washington Post, which is, he could have easily put that in another bucket and set it off.
Well, and they're working together, right? So there's a bunch of promotions where people who buy Kindles get special deals on Washington Post subscription. So they're not pretending that the companies are unrelated either.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so let's flip to a much smaller interview.
Wait, hold on. One more Bezos thing. One
absolutely.
more Bezos thing. Netflix for a second, because Walt kind of goaded him into saying, "Are you guys going to crush Netflix like a bug?" And Bezos came back very simply and said, "There's room for both of us."
Well, look, one of the things, since Amazon at this point is crushing many segments of the retail industry like bugs and has to be worried about antitrust and other concerns about its market clout, and frankly, there's an argument that you could say, somebody could make a case that they're subsidizing their video business and selling it at a loss. He's got, even if he really does think he's going to crush Netflix like a bug, he can't say it.
I actually, again, maybe I just drank the Kool-Aid before the talk, but, he said, we don't compete with Netflix. I think people are going to subscribe to both.
Well, he also said people will get both. They do compete with Netflix. They compete with different propositions, right? Does Costco compete with 7-Eleven? They're not exactly the same.
I've never gotten a Slurpee at Costco, and I've tried. They won't serve it to me. Big fan of Slurpee, by the way. Yeah, I get your point. Look, you could argue, and I just thought, I thought his decision to be magnanimous and kind of shake his head and nod and move along was a clue about how much. Again, this goes back to my basic thesis, which is just he was very much on the top of his game.
Look, again, I think, that makes sense. He's not, they have very sharp elbows. Talk to anybody in publishing or, but they don't talk up the sharp elbows in public, right? They're not making public threats. I think that the thing with Apple TV is pretty damn aggressive, and I think is crossing a line. I don't think he's right. I don't think he's serving his customers. They want to be the world's most customer-centric company, and that is not a customer-centric choice. It is a Amazon shareholder-centric choice.
The everything store minus a couple of things.
In that context.
All right.
But
so moving on. Speaking of boxes, you want to talk about your favorite little box?
Yes. So Roku. I've known Anthony Wood on and off since he did Replay TV, and he's just quietly really smart, right? He figured out the app-driven set-top box before everybody else. He really worked to make it cheap. When the first Google box came out at $300, and I forget what the first Apple TV came out at, he was at $99, and he cut hardware corners. And there's an interview with him, the very interesting interview in Business Insider, and he talks about how they basically moved from the box strategy to the TV operating system strategy. And it just, it's quietly very smart. And he actually talked about the decision making. He said, we think this is the wrong way for the world to go. We think that people should buy screens as monitors and buy a new box every couple of years because the technology changes fast. But for both cultural and legal reasons, no one was going to do that. So we're going to go sell operating systems. And they, 2 or 3 years ago, they started working the Chinese TV makers first, TCL and a bunch of other ones, and they've worked their way up the food chain. And so now a bunch of the TVs that you will see in the Walmart or in the Best Buy have Roku operating system in them.
I just want to say for the record, I hate that idea so much. I hate it so viscerally. It makes
Which idea do you hate?
that we're gonna walk out like so. What's the lifespan of a flat? What should the lifespan of my new flat screen be?
10 years?
I was gonna say 7, but not 3.
Right.
So Roku is either going to be doing endless software updates, which will work up to a point. You'll get
Right.
your TV will be updating every 3 months or every 6 months, and it'll go getting new software. But at some point, the chipset's going to change,
Yep.
and you're going to have a 3-year-old flat screen with a 3-year-old set of chips in it that really wants to be a new flat screen. And unless now you may know this. Maybe they've built it so you can take a little Phillips head screwdriver and pull your Roku, whatever it is, hard drive thingy out of your flat screen unit and replace it. But I doubt it.
So what will in fact happen, right? Because these TVs also have HDMI in from whatever. You'll use the Roku interface for a couple years, and then if you care, you'll go buy a new box from whoever you want to buy a new box from, plug it in, and you use it the way Anthony thought you should have used it all along, or the way lots of us use it, right? So it's almost like buy a TV and get 3 years of a slightly more integrated built-in experience, and then it goes back to just being a monitor.
I just want to. Can we just pretend we're in the manufacturer's conference room with a whiteboard and understand? Do they want the flat screen to be disposable in 3 years? Is that like?
Well, they'd love it if they could make it work.
Well, so my choice is either to throw away my $1,500, $3,000 flat screen at the end of 3 years and get a new one with a new Roku thingy built into it, or buy my Roku thingy as a standalone and plug it in, and then the TV's back to being a dumb monitor again.
Right. But since
by the way, we're not, by the way, I can curse because we're not like on television. That is so fucked up. That is such a fucked up,
now I have to go
sad.
change the iPod, the iPod, the iTunes store settings.
And it's just, it's such a sad outcome. Like when, it would be like the guy who manufactures my sofa secretly wishing that he could actually have me cook food in it, so he'd build a microwave into the cushions of my sofa. Like a TV should, like, I get that TV manufacturers have been trying to own my experience for a very long time. Well, since software got involved, but they're not going to win.
Well, I know, but this is more of a consumer thing. Like, think about televisions again. There was a moment in time when one of the kinds of TVs you could buy had a video cassette recorder built in. And you might have thought a tube TV would last for 20 years, but a VCR is going to break after 3 or 5 years. And so, it wasn't the only kind you could buy. You could buy a separate one, but there was some percentage of the people.
But you're totally wrong, because I owned one of those.
Yes.
That's the thing you have for your summer house, or you need to take it to a presentation. Yeah, I had one of those TV /
So there was a reason to have it, even though you knew that this was not going to be a rational, that the two sets of components had different logical life cycles.
So I want to go back to your friend who I've never met, and you have, and Mr. Roku guy, so why, when they said to him, why do you sign up for this ecosystem that you don't believe in? Why didn't he just say no?
Well,
why didn't he say, listen, I'm going to side with Comcast and Time Warner Cable, Time Warner Cable, which has changed its name to Spectre?
Spectre? Like the James Bond villain?
It's actually not. It's Spectrum, but I prefer to call it the James Bond villain.
There we go.
But in any
You
case,
are giving. I mean, John Malone is scary, but anyway.
but back to this. Why didn't he just say no? Why didn't he say,
Because he wants to be in business. He's Oh, and, he actually talked about this in the interview. There's a law in the United States that says all TVs have to be sold with tuners. So no one, you can make a monitor, but no, it wouldn't be called a TV, and it wouldn't, people tried that and nobody bought them, right? He's,
I'm having this. I'm having a really.
an engineer
I'm
who
having
likes
this
to
really
solve
painful.
problems.
I'm having this really painful flashback to this horrible thing called the cable card.
I own a cable card. Yes, go ahead.
Really? And have you ever used said cable card?
I have it in this gizmo called the HD home run that when I was doing the startup, I used to send TV signals to my laptop to record, and I've done other tricks with it. But
To me, the cable card will go. It's one of those great things where the federal government says we're going to legislate how the industry is going to behave, and everyone, okay, yeah, good job, yeah. We're just not going to install it. What part of we don't have to do that do you not understand? Anyway, but back to Roku, because we're going to run out of time, and I want to make sure we answer the question, because you've got him firmly in the good guy category, but I don't think you've yet made.
Well,
the case.
look, if you want to buy the cheapest TV you can find and a Roku box, he'll sell you one. But he's out there to make money. So the terms of he when you is doing very well selling these TV operating systems. It is doing something that I think you and I both agree is a really bad thing, which is he is then making money on the content passing through. Right? If you subscribe to Netflix through a Roku box or a Roku TV, he gets a cut of the transaction forever. If under certain circumstances, advertising supported channels that run through the Roku, he gets ad inventory to sell as if he was a local TV station. So there's this is, from a TV maker's point of view, this is the opportunity to actually make money on content.
All right, well, are you an owner of a Roku?
I am. It's not hooked up yet. We mostly use the Apple TV at this point because Apple TV's gotten enough of the apps. But every now and then there's something I can't get on the Apple TV, and I'll go and unplug it and stick the Roku in.
So I have a Roku in the bedroom and an Apple TV in the living room, and I use them both for different things, and I like them both. And I hope your friend succeeds, because I think that having an independent set-top box manufacturing company is a good thing, but I think the TV decision is a bad one, and
Well, that's a consumer decision. Though we should just say that as he described the market, right? There's 4 box players: Roku, Google, Amazon, and Apple. And Amazon and Apple are not licensing their operating system, so the TV market is basically Roku plus 2 incarnations of Google operating systems, and he likes those odds. I see the biggest challenge to him is not the TV decision, but the fact that he's not a cell phone company. And there is so much, that is integrated between, I want my various connected devices to be the same. And if I download an app, I want it to be everywhere that runs apps. And so having an Apple consistency between my phone and my TV is better, or Android, Google consistency, and Roku is not in that game.
so it's interesting. You know what we're not talking about?
What are we not talking about?
Kindle Fire TV.
What?
Kindle Fire TV.
Well, that's
fallen right off the face of the earth.
The Fire. I mean, since Amazon stopped selling any of the other ones, they're still selling Fire Sticks.
I didn't say they weren't selling. I'm just saying in terms of it. Anyway, let's move on to this Atlantic article, which I liked way better than you.
Okay, so walk through the argument and what excited you about it.
So, 3 years ago, my clients started saying to me, mobile for web, mobile for video. And this is 3 years ago, which is a long time. And I said, yeah, it's a thing. The kids are doing it. 2 years ago, we started paying attention. We started building apps. We started building technology. And all we've seen in the last 18 months is this massive shift in behavior so that the thing you hold in your hand, in addition to being your calendar and your Snapchat device and your friend connecting device, it is increasingly your, call it TV or video, whatever. I thought The Atlantic did an extraordinarily good consumer-friendly job of taking this formerly, that's the thing the kids are doing, and saying kind of very simply, yeah, no, it really might be what television becomes. It might really be mobile. And maybe you think that's obvious, but I thought it was a well-reasoned argument that it was hard to disagree with.
So there's no question that mobile's a big deal. I got turned off because their news peg on this article was Mary Meeker's slides, and Mary that she does at Walton Kara's conference every year, and she had a version of a chart she's been running for 20 years, which is, look at how much user time there is on this or that form of digital media, and look, the advertising spend on that is much smaller than the amount of time people spend. It will catch up, so it's a good investment area. That's a true statement, but it's always true. Advertising always lags consumer behavior, and so it's not very interesting to my mind to say, oh my, 25% of the time, but 10% of the ad spending. But
I think we can move on. To me, the question has always been, is mobile a blip on the way to a new translucent holographic big wall thingy, or is it actually people really like holding TV in their hand, and that's where it's going?
So we're all realizing that this relationship we have, even when we sometimes break up with someone that we've been having deep conversations with, is very intimate and personal, and having this thing that has all of our stuff in it that's on our body is very powerful. And that sense of control, if I want to watch TV, I may well want to watch it on the thing that I'm intimate with. I think that calling it mobile does narrow you a little too much. I really do believe that we're in an app universe where you want everything everywhere. And I think there's some businesses that make mistakes when they look at how important mobile is, and they start cutting people off from other things because they say it's only about mobile, when what I think is happening is mobile is sort of the most, your handheld that's on you all the time is the most important of this family of connected devices.
All right, so we're getting near the end of the show, so let's just quickly talk about this $10 million. First and foremost, Fox dumping $8 million into Skim. We like?
Well, look, it's another example of, people not accepting the value of small. The Skim starts out as a very capital efficient, successful little email newsletter. People like it. It doesn't cost much to produce. It's, a very, breezy, quick read on the day's news. They have millions of subscribers. Now they want to be something else. And, News Corp or Fox or whoever will give them lots of money to see if they can do, yet another take on short, breezy news videos. They might, but it's like a new business. And they're destroying the capital efficiency that they had for some sense of, big growth, and it'll either work or it won't. But they'll blow up something that you knew was nice.
And then one more chunk of money, $10 million. Actually, so we're 18 million this week in the race of seeing how much cash is pouring into our space. Tubular Labs raised another $10 million to measure online videos across social platforms. I like this deal because I like them, but I also think ad tech is crazy complicated, and not them. Let me be careful how I say this. I don't think there's anything Tubular is doing that fits this next sentence, but I do think that, like, having just come from the Luma conference the week earlier, I mean, there's an enormous amount of visibility, drama, and fraud, and click fraud, and robots, and human views versus non-human views. So if Tubular can use this 10 million to help sort that stuff out and shake out the crime and dishonesty, then that's awesome.
Well, in the measurement space, basically you've got Nielsen and ComScore competing vigorously, and so you start a company, competing with two giants and hoping you have enough innovation to sell to one of them. That's the reality. You might think that you'll live forever or whatever, but loosely speaking, if you want to be measuring TV, you have to have something that's unique enough. Now, they've actually become a little bit less unique. They started out trying to measure influencers and hot YouTube people on the MCNs, and that, as we've talked about a lot, that sort of devolves into a bigger, more ordinary universe, and so they're measuring video on social platforms. And lots of people have started little things and sold it to Nielsen and ComScore, and it can be good business.
So we are out of time. On Tuesday, our fans can come see me at the Northside Festival in Brooklyn, where I will be emceeing. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but I'll be emceeing, and we will be back next week with another edition of Hacking TV. And until then,
keep on hacking.
Keep on hacking. See you next week.